So the timeline for RFPs, it seems kind of a long time. Like Brenda mentioned, there's a lot of requirements, both internal and external to RTD that are required to be followed. So there's usually about 20 days pre-solicitation work, getting internal approvals. Like I said, there's a minimum posting requirement of 30 calendar days, which is about 23 business days. And then RTD acceptance, evaluation, internal approvals, checklists, and finally signatures can take about 30 days to complete. Specifically for you all, some milestones within the RFP solicitation. There will always be a pre-submission briefing. It's generally, these are just kind of estimates on when they're held, about 5 days after posting. Then the inquiry period will close, or this is where you'll ask questions. And then RTD will respond to those inquiries by 15 days to give you all a chance to digest those. And then solicitations due 23 days, and then again, award about 30 days after that. Now, this timeline can be customized based upon the complexity of the project. Sometimes it'll be posted for longer than the 23 days. If we require board approval from RTD, it can take significantly longer than 30 days noted. So again, this is just an estimation. We will move on to the RF qual, or request for qualification. This is a form of solicitation like RFP, where RTD seeks a solution to define need, but it's qualifications-based selection. Price is not considered during phase one. This is typically a two-phase solicitation where price is negotiated below during phase two with the top-ranked firms. Slide, please.
Do you not see it? I see it.
The RF qual is used by RTD. It's used to select pre-qualified vendors based on qualifications. Again, these could be expertise, experience, capabilities, experience with direct personnel. RTD is required to use it anytime there's a Brooks Act covered service. So this is architecture, engineering, and related professional services for anything where the scope leads to construction. Again, this is typically for projects over 250,000, but we may use it for less. Some examples, I just did an RFQ for design services, and an RFQ was done for consulting services where we didn't have exact projects, but we just wanted to make a bench. So that's basically where RFQs or requests for qualifications are used. And then the timeline for RF quals is very similar to RFPs, except for we have to take into account the second phase. So if you'll notice, the big difference is that there's a 10-day acceptance in the initial selection, and then 10 days to request pricing or rates, and then the internal approvals, just like the RFP. For you all, the big difference will be there'll be a solicitation due date, notice of selection, and then there'll be another phase two where pricing or rates are due. All right, so moving on to invitation for bid. This is the most streamlined solicitation method over 250,000. This is a procurement method that's used to solicit competitive sealed bids. Awards typically made to the lowest price, technically acceptable, responsible bid. Award made based primarily on price. Why I say that primarily on price, there can be small evaluation factors as well, but they are far and rarely used. Next, this is where we have a really clearly define good or service that we're procuring. Typically used when specifications, qualification requirements, timelines, and submittal requirements are precise and well established. And so it's a matter of just submitting a proposal, and um, it should just be a bottom line price. Once again, this is for over 250,000, but we can use this for projects under 250,000. I just did an IFB for a very simple construction project where we have very defined scope with drawings and specifications. So it's a matter of almost like putting parts together rather than actually complex construction that requires more evaluation and consideration. Next slide, please. So this is the most, like I said, streamlined. There's going to be the same pre-solicitation work, the same requirement to post on OpenGov, but then there is no evaluation team. So that part is taken out of the timeline. So for you all, the biggest added step is that there'll be solicitations due, and then there will be a bid opening publicly where we'll open all the bids, and so you can see the prices or the proposed prices and likely winner. So that is IFB, and that is it for me. I think we're a little bit ahead of schedule, so we might have some time for some questions if anyone has any.
I saw a comment from someone that said that the chat is turned off. But I don't know that that's still the case. So could we just check that?
It is working. Maybe someone
Okay.
with connecting over computer that is not totally using Teams is maybe over the phone, but we're working on that particular person. But thank you, Brenda.
Okay. Just a couple quick things. I'm going to switch over sharing of screen to Bethany. I'm obviously having some significant tech issues, so I don't want to keep doing that. So I'm going to have Bethany take over sharing her screen so that we can have a smooth transition.
So Patrick, it does look like we got one question from Helena. It says it was mentioned as an example that an RFQ was issued to establish a bench for consultants. In those cases, how long is the issuance open? As I tie this example to the guidance provided, these are typically under the $250,000 threshold and has the opportunity passed. If so, for how before the, I'm so sorry, the opportunity is reissued? How long before the opportunity is reissued?
Well, thank you very much for the question. Yes, for a bench consultant contracts, it's usually the total cost is going to, for all the awarded follow-on work orders, are going to be over 250,000. So it's going to be above that threshold generally. And Jill, I believe you just awarded this, so I don't believe that there's going to be any plans for recompete anytime soon. Is that accurate?
That's correct. And it's possibly a 7-year commitment, or can be.
I've got one more here that was a question that was posed earlier. It says, we've reached out previously for micro purchases, but may have not connected with the right team. For small micro purchases, is there a preferred way departments identify and engage vendors? Want to take that, or you want me to give it my best shot?
Why don't you give it your best shot?
So again, micro purchases are those that are less than $10,000. The vast majority of the requisitions that we see here in our department, of course, exceed that amount. There are occasions, of course, there's always exceptions to the rule. My answer to somebody in chat earlier is RTD has recently migrated to OpenGov as our procurement platform. So everything that we do, as far as solicitations are concerned, awards, everything internally, it's been a global shift for us. If your firm is not already does not already have an OpenGov account, I would highly recommend that you do so. It's a no-cost thing for you to do. One of the things that you can do in your vendor profile is add NAICS codes. We call them NICS codes. When we receive any request for goods or services, we now search for those NICS codes, right? So when you sign up with OpenGov, you are notified of all the opportunities that we put out there that are advertised. But secondarily, for those micro purchases, for the things that are that very small dollar, I think it would definitely help your organization having those NICS codes in there. So when one of our team members needs to reach out and obtain several codes, they can look in OpenGov for local vendors with those specific NICS codes, right? If we're looking for a widget and the widget is a NICS code of 54712, they can type that number in, your firm would come up. Needless to say, that doesn't prohibit you from marketing or reaching out to any of us here in the procurement department to let us know who you are and what you do. So if indeed those requirements arise, we keep notes, right? That I don't know if that's an adequate answer, but that's my best answer.
Thank you, Ron. And so to keep time, I'm gonna keep moving ahead in the slides, but feel free to continue to ask questions in the chat. Ron is monitoring, and if I have time in my presentation, we can take some time again to answer some of those questions. All right, so my name is Bethany Swank. I'm a procurement specialist too here at RTD. I've been with RTD just over 4 years. So I am actually going to present the sole source brand names, blanket purchase orders, and requests for information that we do utilize here at the agency. So the agenda for my presentation is to define each solicitation method, when they should be used, average timelines, and I apologize, we will not have interactive scenarios in this presentation today. So a sole source is a non-competitive method of procurement used only when one supplier possesses the unique ability or capability to meet the particular requirements of the entity, or when only one supplier is practically available. Conditions that justify a sole source can be that the vendor provides unique capability or availability, patents or restricted data rights, compatibility with existing systems requires a specific supplier, unusual and compelling urgency, or substantial duplication cost. When is sole source prohibited? Less than full and open competition is not justified based on failure to plan, the agency's lack of advanced planning, or limited availability of federal assistance. So brand names. A brand name requires one specific manufacturer's product. No substitutions are allowed. And then there's also the brand names or equal. These use a brand or model as a benchmark. Alternatives are allowed if they meet the same requirements. When brand names apply, compatibility, standardization needs, unique or proprietary features, replacement or add-on components, safety or regulatory requirements, lack of acceptable substitutes. And when the brand name or equal applies, is used when a specific product is named only as a reference, allows vendors to offer equivalent alternatives that meet required performance or functional standards, ensures competition while maintaining quality, and applied when multiple acceptable products can meet the agency's needs. And we're moving on to the blanket purchase orders. Agreement to buy goods from one supplier for a set period with an up to a specified dollar limit. This includes established prices, terms and conditions, with no fixed quantities, items ordered as needed, shipments sent when requested by purchaser or end user. When are the BPOs used? This is most commonly used when reoccurring goods or services are needed, when exact quantities are unknown, when pricing and terms can be set for a fixed period, to streamline frequent, low complexity purchases. All right, and then we have our request for information. It's a formal document used to gather information from vendors or the market. Excuse me, part of early stage market research. It is not a solicitation and does not result in an award, but they are used to help us move forward with solicitations. Used when requirements are not fully defined, helps identify available solutions and vendor capabilities, guides scope, budget, timeline, and procurement strategy. No pricings are requested during the RFI. It's for informational purposes only. The RFI process is used to understand market capabilities, to refine unclear requirements, to explore new or unfamiliar technologies, to confirm competitive vendor landscape, and to compare high-level solution approaches. And for an RFI, we have the timeline laid out. It usually is a total of 48 days to complete. It is advertised in OpenGov, and it usually is posted for an average of 30 days. So information that can be requested in an RFI. This usually is general pricing structures, market trends and alternative options, products, services, or solution concepts, lead times, timeline, and methodology, vendor capabilities and experience, industry best practices, and emerging technologies. All right, and we are here at the question stage. I do believe we have a few minutes if we want to go ahead and answer any.
Bethany, here's one you guys, I can't type as quickly as you guys can talk, so I'll share them. One of the questions posted is, to meet the same requirements in quotations, do we submit similar spec sheets? And is RTD strictly Buy American? Want me to answer, or do you want to?
Oh, I'm sorry. So if you could go ahead, I'm trying to look for that question so I could see it.
Sure, not a problem. So again, the question, to meet the same requirements, do we submit similar spec sheets? So this is a two-part question, right? The answer is yes. So I believe you're probably referring to brand name or equal, right? So if we are at the best analogy I guess I could use is if we are looking for pickup trucks, right? And we like, or the specification says we want a half-ton Chevy pickup, four-wheel drive, two-door with a standard bed, what have you. That's or equal, if you would quote on a Chevy truck or a Dodge truck, as long as it's an equal offering, then yes. So to answer your question, I would submit similar spec sheets if you are definitely quoting an or equal product, just to make sure that we can compare them. The
And
second part of your
from-
question is, go
I'm
ahead.
so sorry. I just wanted to add to that a little.
Sure.
So when you're requesting a equal to a brand name, you also want to make sure those are submitted during the inquiry period for approval.
Good point. Great point. The second part of the question is RTD strictly Buy America or Buy American? It's actually Buy America for us. Those requirements come into play if we have federal funding on the project itself. So we have different revenue streams or different budgeting streams, right? So if we utilize local funding, that is not a requirement. If we have any federal dollars whatsoever that is contributed to the project, then the Buy America Act does indeed apply, right? It all depends on funding. That's the second part of your question. Question, do you have any contacts or small purchases for language access or language services? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, again, Brenda had mentioned the wide variety of different requirements that we see here. Right, it's like a small city. We have so many different things going on. Specifically for language services, I believe we had something that was toyed with. I don't know if it actually came to fruition or not. Jill, was that yours? I'm trying to remember. There was an interpretation or a language service. And hopefully I'm
No.
getting your question correct. Somebody, I believe, had.
Yes, we did have one that was advertised by one of the procurement specialist ones. We've also utilized language services via co-ops.
Okay. Let's see here. Alexis answered that question. Sorry, I'm looking to make sure that we don't blow over any questions here. Is there a specific person on the team that focuses more on service providers than products or widgets? So the best way I can answer that question is years ago, we used to be siloed, right? Each of the procurement professionals that was here had kind of a specialty, right? Somebody did contracted services, somebody did construction, somebody did architectural and engineering, right? And that has changed. So the answer to your question is there's not a specific person. When requisitions come through, there's a need that needs to be filled. It really is dependent upon the workload for each of the procurement specialists that are in the department, right? So we don't have one specific person for one need. It's kind of spread across. So the answer to your question is there's not a specific person. And again, I'll go back to, again, utilize OpenGov. If you have not as yet done it, it'll be your best friend. You'll know about everything that comes out. Last question here, and then we'll flip over. I saw an email regarding contracts for Denver Public Schools and Excel. Are they affiliated with RTD or just OpenGov? So we don't, needless to say, RTD is a separate entity from the Denver Public School System. Apparently, I wasn't aware of that. Apparently, Denver Public Schools utilizes OpenGov as well. OpenGov, again, is a platform that was I think kind of dovetailed or focuses in on governmental entities, right? Again, we talk about specific requirements that we need to include in our solicitations and subsequent contracts. OpenGov has really focused in on that marketplace. So I think you will see other governmental entities utilizing OpenGov as we do, but no, we are not associated.
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to add, Ron, specifically about Excel, DPS, Denver Water, and Denver Housing Authority, is that they're using RTD's SB certification. That's the relationship that you probably saw around in different emails, just for clarification.
Got it. Okay.
So I'm gonna pass it back to Brenda real quick. It looks like she might have that pre-session survey.
Yeah, again, I apologize to everyone. I can't get it into presentation mode, and I also recognize that we're, a good way into this, but if you don't mind taking a few minutes, a minute or two to fill it out, there's just 4 questions. It shouldn't take too long. We'd really appreciate it. And again, I apologize. I'm stuck. So thanks for your understanding. We'll just leave that up there for a minute. Our next session is going to be presented by Jill Pruitt. And actually, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? I'll leave this up for a minute, and I hope you all can just do the survey. Like I said, it only takes a minute or two. Bethany, are you gonna share the remainder of the slides?
Yes, I will share,
Okay.
after Jill's introduction, I will pull the slides back up.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. This is really exciting. I know Brenda's been wanting to get this going for a long time, and I'm happy to be a part of it as well. Let's see, I've been here about 1.5 years, and my first time in public procurement. I've been in the private sector for about 25 years before that. So I've got a lot of procurement under my belt. And that's it. I'm happy to be here. It's a great agency.
All right, I'm gonna go
Brenda?
ahead and
Before you go ahead, Brenda, somebody put in here the survey's asking for a login.
Oh, for Microsoft.
What?
Can you place
boy.
the link? Brenda, can you copy and paste the link on the bottom? Maybe just the HTTPS address. Would that be the easiest?
I'll do that right now.
Okay.
Oh
Thank
boy.
you.
I'm so sorry, everyone.
all right, and we're gonna get back to the presentation. There you are, Jill.
Great. Thanks, Bethany. So I'll be going over cooperative agreements, requests for quote, and micro purchases, define them, when to use them, and the average timelines for each. And next slide. Let's see. Cooperative agreements, if everyone doesn't know what they are or not familiar with them, they are contracts negotiated between public agencies. For example, Arizona, Utah, the state of Minnesota will have cooperative agreements. Some of the cooperative agreements we're using today are NASPO, Omnia. There's a site called Pavilion out there that has a robust information on cooperatives and contracts you can piggyback off of, so to speak. We do use NASPO and Omnia quite a bit. And we use them for services. If you want to go to the next slide. When we are upgrading software maintenance agreements, we just had a project to upgrade end-of-life equipment. So those are some services that we used a cooperative agreement for. Safety supplies. I'm getting ready to do one for fleet parts, and that's going to be a BPO using a cooperative agreement. And the reason why cooperative agreements are so wonderful is they're pre-negotiated contract terms. We use pricing models for leverage. So the prices are significantly cheaper because they're cooperative. Many agencies partake in that, and we're able to leverage that for cost. And not only cost, but it's an agreement that's been looked at through legal. Our legal will look at that as well. We're looking mainly for a binding agreement between the state of Colorado and whoever started that agreement through NASPO. We're looking for Colorado participating addendums or something binding that we're allowed to use that. We need to see that binding agreement. But yeah, we use it for office supplies, IT hardware, like I said, the fleet equipment, facility maintenance supplies, public safety equipment, and professional services. The timeline there is once we get our purchase requisition, we have documents that we need. So we need to review those documents. It takes us a little time. Like I said, legal still needs to review it, and we're looking for that binding agreement that the state of Colorado or RTD can use, whosever agreement, cooperative agreement is out there. And of course, we need our internal approvals and such. So we're looking at about 29 to 34 days to process that procurement. And then we go on to request for quotation. We can either post those in OpenGov or via email. They are, believe it or not, small purchasers are $10,000 to $250,000, which doesn't seem so small. But those, like I said, could be through OpenGov or email, like we'll request from suppliers to quote. This award is based primarily on price. And of course, the time frame is flexible. We don't have to post it for 30 days like a RFQ or a RFP. Those are used for a lot of off-the-shelf items. Say we need a server, we know the part number or what we want, actually, what our clear needs are. We might even include installation. Let's see. And we'll compare those quotes. We'll get 3 or 4 quotes and we'll compare those. And again, it's cost driven. So cost will be the highest priority. And a lot of off-the-shelf items. It could be a box software or just software we know exactly what we want. So it's geared toward, you know, part numbers or services that we know we need. We know how long it's going to take approximately. And the timelines for each, and they differ because one is going to be through OpenGov and the other one is not. Sometimes we'll get our purchase requisitions that have been quoted already. There'll be like 3 or 4 different quotes when they submitted their purchase requisition. We ask for cost estimates. So a lot of times our PMs or persons needing their procurement will need to understand what they're buying, and therefore they go out and do their research. So many times we'll get quotes and those will accompany the purchase request. If they do not, then we use those NIC codes in OpenGov and we go out and we solicit some quotes and then we'll compare those. And again, it's meant to be apples to apples, part number to part number, service to service, and lowest price will usually get that bid or that award. Micro purchases, these are the quick purchases, sometimes emergency purchases. They don't require competitive bids. They're 10,000 or under. We go out and buy, and it has to be deemed fair and reasonable. Purchases must be spread equally among qualified suppliers. We can't just choose the same supplier every single time. And then price needs to be reasonable and compared against trends, recent buys, market sources, similar items, and buyer knowledge. And some common examples are office supplies, training supplies, emergency supplies, maintenance or cleaning services, and small equipment or tools. Who doesn't need a tool like last minute, something like that? You always need micro purchases, right? And of course, that timeline, since we don't need much as far as being so formal, they're under $10,000. It's pretty much make sure it's fair and reasonable, and a supplier that can handle that purchase. I think, is that questions now? Yeah, so questions.
I don't have any that came across. I'm waiting. We'll see.
I got the easy one.
Brenda, do you just want to allow some times and we can just go over the common pitfalls quickly?
Sure. Again, I recognize that, this pre-session survey has been a little bit of a nightmare, but it is working. That last link that's there, if you can take 30 seconds to complete it based on where you were when we started, that would be great. Again, I apologize for the confusion on that. I tested it, but I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys doing it. Something went wrong. So
Real quick, Brenda, we did get a question from
Okay, good.
Ross. They are asking, who do we contact to get certified as an SBE? I will let Tony handle this if he is still on the call. I know he is the main contact in the SBO department for certifications.
There's actually a
Yeah.
couple that were just added in the chat, so.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Bethany.
and
Yeah,
just
I'll
to-
put my information in the chat and you could reach out to me individually and we'll just keep going with the meeting here. But yeah, I'll take care of any SB related questions. Just find my information in the chat.
Thank you, Tony.
One more question that came through, Jill. Are services under the $10,000 threshold also considered micro purchases, or is it reserved strictly for products?
No, I believe those are for services as well. Good question. We might need someone to fix some plumbing or put up I think when I first started, I had someone needed a partition in one of the restrooms. So that was quick in and out. So that was a service.
All right, Brenda.
Yeah,
There.
I'll add a quick comment about micro purchases and to add on to your response to Brad's question. One thing we need to ensure from a procurement perspective is that we're not utilizing micro purchases over and over again for the same thing, right? So it's a accumulation of what the cost would be, whether it's a product or a service. If it's a one-time or two-time buy and it's less than 10,000, it fits into that category. If you are wanting some type of service that might be $5,000 a month, every month, right? That's no longer a micro
Right.
purchase. So
Good point.
it's definitely something that we have to consider when we get the requests into procurement. So okay. I'm just looking to see if we have anything else.
I'm gonna add one more. Crystal had answered a question that was posted that do you have SBE use goals on RFPs? And she answered yes. We often assign goals to RFPs. Just so everybody out there understands, anything that exceeds $10,000 goes through our small business office for review as far as the applicability of an assigned goal. So the answer is, again, not only on RFPs, but anything that we do that exceeds $10,000 is reviewed by our small business office. And if there are opportunities for our partners to participate, that's a deciding factor as far as whether or not there's an assigned goal. Hopefully that helps.
And just to add a little more to that, when in OpenGov, you're looking at solicitations currently posted, we do make sure to notate in parentheses at the end of the title of the project if an SBO goal has been assigned, whether it is SBE or DBE.
One more question that came through from Eugene. The question is, sorry, I got windows popping up blocking. So it sounds like a micro purchase is based on the total awarded contract value for the full term. The answer to that would be yes, right? So we are looking for, depending upon that, if you're talking about a service, that would, of course, exceed quite a time frame. So if you're looking at a specific supply item, we would order it and have it delivered. So that the term would be rather short. If you're talking about a full term, I'll use services as an example. If we are looking for a service that would be for 3 months, 6 months, a year or more, then yes, the award would entail or would reflect the entire awarded amount. Hopefully that makes sense. So it sounds like a micro purchase is based on the total awarded contract value for the full term. And the answer to that is yes.
Can I expand again? We're just
course.
jumping in to
Yep.
help each other here,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I'd just like to give an example, and I'll go back to what Jill's example was about I think you said plumbing, right? Or a partition, or, so we could use either one of those. Um, if it's a, one-time service to repair something and that total amount falls under 10,000, it's a micro purchase. If it is, let's use the partition thing. If it's 2 partitions and it's under $10,000, micro purchase. If it's 100 partitions at $500 each, obviously, spread over time, it's obviously not a micro purchase, right? So, if it's over $10,000, it is, to follow our guidelines that we've talked about for a small dollar purchase or whatever's applicable, right? Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move forward on, okay, great, thanks, Eugene. Common pitfalls. One thing we wanted to point out to our vendor community is things that we see that create sometimes for our vendors to be deemed non-responsive, or possibly they score lower on an evaluation, or maybe the documentation that is submitted is not aligned with what we've got in our solicitation. So I'm just going to go through this list. I encourage questions if you have any, but here's some examples. This is not all inclusive. So one of the first things that came to mind when I was making the slide is failure to read and understand the solicitation requirements and the scope. So if the solicitation details exactly what we're looking to procure, and let's say it's a request for proposal, and we are saying these are the things that A, are included in the scope of work, and B, that you need to submit with your proposal, and you submit your proposal and it is marketing information and it's not specific to the project that you're submitting a bid or proposal for, it's likely going to be an unsuccessful effort. In our solicitations, we write very clear direction on what you need to submit with your bid or proposal, or I'll just say your response. And then we also have a clear scope of work. So that's one of the things we see frequently.
Can I utilize an example so they understand that the very first one? So we just had a solicitation for a fire suppression system installation and upgrade. Part of the scope of work required that the successful contractor actually build a room that contained this new fire suppression equipment. The bids that we received in response, one of them was, right, it was very inexpensive. However, upon further examination, when we asked them, they did not include building the room, even though the scope of work outlined the requirement for the room to be built. So that just reinforces again that the contractor did not, right there, they focused totally on the fire suppression system itself, but they did not take into consideration that part of the scope was the building of that room. So again, it just goes to reinforce what Brenda's talking about is read and understand everything that is outlined in the scope of work so that there is no disparity between what you're offering us as far as a cost or a proposal and really what's outlined in the scope.
That's a great example, Ron. Thank you. That was a really good example. Okay, so I'll move forward, not submitting all required documentation. If we are asking for a schedule, for example, a proposed schedule or delivery time frame, or any of the things outlined in our solicitation that we need in order to make a decision and award a contract, that's problematic, and you may either be deemed non-responsive or you won't be your value or your proposal scores will reflect that lack of information. So Because if you remember, and we didn't go deep into RFPs in terms of, you know, what that looks like in the process, but every RFP that we advertise has evaluative criteria included in it. So I encourage you to look at that evaluative criteria. If you don't, I mean, I'm not making the assumption that that isn't happening, but I'm just trying to make sure that we're communicating clearly what things we see. So make sure that your proposal aligns with what we're asking for, both in terms of the required documentation and the content of that. I mentioned a few minutes ago that we, you know, marketing material is not a response to our solicitation. Because we are asking for something specific. We're not trying to see all of the things that a company offers. We've identified and very clearly detailed what it is we're looking to purchase. So one that we see from time to time is incomplete or missing SBE enclosures. So when there's a goal, there's always a requirement to complete these SBE enclosures. When there is a goal on our solicitation, we include our small business office. I think it's like the compliance officer that attends, but they attend that pre-bid or pre-proposal meeting, and they provide very clear instruction on how to complete the form. So I absolutely recommend that you take the time to ensure, first of all, that you listen to that presentation from our small business team during our pre-bid or pre-proposal, but also that you clearly and accurately complete the forms because it matters. And if you if you do not do it correctly, there's a chance that you'll unfortunately be deemed non-responsive, and we don't want that to happen because you're spending time and effort to submit a proposal or bid, and you know, we want it to be able to be evaluated and considered for award. So another thing we see frequently is inclusion of pricing information in technical proposals. So how we have it set up in OpenGov, it has clear sections of where documents should be uploaded. A proposal, technical proposal is in one section and pricing is in another. And so when that information is kind of commingled together, it creates a lot of problems for us because and I'm going to talk about OpenGov a little bit more, but one of the great features that we have is that we can do our evaluations through OpenGov, and you know, so we're sharing the proposals with the evaluation committee. But if there's pricing information in your technical proposal, that causes a big problem because we can't share it with that team because they're not to see the price until they've evaluated based on the technical response. Go ahead, Dana.
Oh, no, thank you very much. These are great examples, Ron, Brenda. I appreciate it. I was just going to add that if the vendor points out that there's a change in the industry or something that is different, and what we have solicited or put out in a cost proposal does not match how you think the industry is treating that service or product right now, then don't wait until the solicitation closes to bring that up. If you think that maybe we're missing the mark or on something in the way we put it out, ask that during the inquiry period, because it's the only opportunity you're going to have to be able to bring that up. If you submit something and try to explain it afterwards, then it's too late, right? If you know, you have a question or concern about how it was presented, the inquiry period is the time to do that. So please read early, prepare early, and get the questions out there when you have the opportunity. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
So the next pitfall that I've identified is that responses don't include information aligned with the solicitation requirements. And I've kind of touched on that a few times in what I've talked about. And what I mean by that is if we're asking you to provide a project schedule and you don't, or if we're asking you for what specific product you're proposing for, let's say, marketing material or something. Well, you know, what is it with clear details, not just a brochure of all the things you offer and a link to a website that we could go look at. So it's really important that I can't stress all of this enough. I know some of them kind of cover or are part of the other bullets, but and then the last bullet is not submitting questions or exceptions during the inquiry period. So yeah, Dana beat me to that one. It's on the slide here, and so to her point, we want you to thoroughly read the solicitations and provide any kind of questions. That question could be exactly what Dana was talking about. Hey, that's not how we do this, right? The industry, the way you have this laid out that's not how we ask or obtain pricing or provide pricing, or that's not the right approach to what is the industry standard at this time. It could be questions for clarification on things in the scope of work. It could be exceptions to our terms and conditions. All of those types of questions need to be submitted during our question and answer session. Period. We will review all of the questions. The appropriate person will provide responses, and those will be posted through OpenGov, right? So if it's a legal question, we send that question to someone on our legal team. If it's procurement, that agent or the team will help to answer that. If it's a SBO goal-related question, we'll get with Alexis or the person on his team. So we work collaboratively to get you thorough and accurate responses, and we encourage those questions to be asked. One thing I would say is before you make a list of questions, ensure that you have thoroughly reviewed and understand what is presented in the solicitation, because frequently we get questions about things that are, our answer will be per section 3.1.5, da 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 da. So the answer's right there, right? The answer's in the solicitation, but we just ask that you take that time, invest that time in it to make sure that, if the answer's there, you're seeing it. That's all. There's probably more pitfalls that we could think of, and maybe we could dig into this at another, more at our next vendor open house. Jill has her hand up, so before I move on, I'll go ahead.
I am noticing a lot that during the inquiry period, it's also somewhere where you can question or exceptions, clarity, or questions to the form of contract. Because a lot of times at the end, people want to negotiate the contract, and it's like at this time in the inquiry period is a time to ask for exceptions, questions, clarity.
Yep, that's right.
So go ahead, Bethany.
I was just going to say, just as a reminder too, this is the time to ask for approved equals, because it allows the RTD project team to go through and properly vet the product to make sure it meets the needs of the project.
So several questions, but I'm going to expound a little bit on the inquiry period and the reason that we ask for any exceptions to be addressed during that time frame. If you as a vendor take exception to anything that's outlined in the scope and or any of the terms and conditions that are outlined, it is not fair of us to say, you know what, we'll make an exception for you, but not share that same exception with everybody else out there, right? Brenda talked about one of the things that we are focused on is fair and open competition. By fair meaning, it has to be a level playing field for everybody that's out there. So the reason that we ask for any exceptions to be addressed during the inquiry period, questions are always publicized via an addenda. So the question and the answer to that question is posted so that everybody out there is, again, on an even playing field. I just wanted to make sure that that's why we draw a line in the sand with any exceptions that you're asking for be presented prior to everybody submitting a response. Okay. The questions that are, again, kind of outlined here. First one, what is the appropriate process for vendors to engage early on upcoming opportunities? What I would recommend is, again, sometimes in procurement, it's hard for us to say, right? Somebody will call and say, I heard that you guys are going to be doing this project. What's going on with that? In total transparency, we're a lot of times the last to know. There's all kinds of things that are done in the background in planning and budget. We don't know a lot of times until the project makes its way to us being fully approved and fully funded. Once we do, again, going back to Patrick's presentation, there is some assembly time that's listed out there, but we list those opportunities as upcoming opportunities. You can see those on RTD's website as well as in OpenGov, I believe. Is that true on OpenGov? Do we do upcoming opportunities as well, or only on ours?
You can
Both.
see upcoming solicitations
Okay.
on our page on OpenGov.
So if I guess what I'm trying to say is, to answer your question, how do you engage early on in upcoming opportunities? I think the best answer is, right, do your due diligence and watch for those things. If you see an opportunity that is listed as upcoming, you are in a position to know and to keep an eye on when that's out. And I would suggest keeping in touch with our department specifically to make sure that you receive notification of when that's actually advertised. Second question, what is the process?
Ron, real
Oh,
quick,
go ahead.
Brenda
Yeah.
looked like she had some input.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when you see on OpenGov, and we're gonna go into OpenGov in a minute, but when you see the upcoming opportunities, that is when we in procurement have received a fully approved purchase requisition, and we are working to build that solicitation. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that, because we don't have an ongoing list of things that are in the pipeline before it gets to us. Those that you see are ones that are approved, funded, and we're working to advertise them. So I just want to make that clarification. Thank you.
Sure. Next question that Wes had prompted, what is the process for a vendor around the inquiry period? So all of our questions, again, to keep it fair, we ask, and maybe I'll utilize that too, right? So we do pre-proposal briefings or pre-bid site visits a lot of times. And it's hard for us, right, in those briefings to not address a question from a prospective contractor, right? It's hard for me if somebody poses a question and says, can we utilize these parking spaces to stage equipment? If there are contractors that are at a pre-bid walkthrough and the answer that I or the project manager says, yeah, you can do that. Again, that's not fair for everybody else that's not there, because they don't take that exception. They don't know about that exception. So we always ask everybody in a pre-proposal briefing or a pre-bid meeting, you know what, it's hard for us to say, I can't answer that question. You have to submit it in writing and not answer any questions. We could, but I think it would make for a pretty boring meeting. However, I always preface those meetings by saying, if your question has any bearing whatsoever on your ability to perform, any way that you're going to do your pricing structure, please submit your questions in writing via OpenGov. So we have a definitive question and we have the definitive answer to that question. All of the questions and answers are posted again via addenda, and the addenda become part of the contract. Therefore, there's no gray area with, well, I was walking through and your project manager said I could do this, and it's not part of the contract, right? And then when there's gray area, it has to be in writing, just like everything else, right? As a governmental agency that writes contracts, we go by what the contract says. So if there was an exception that was discussed with somebody else outside of what is in that contract, that becomes a problem. So hopefully that answers your question about the inquiry period. We try to give at least a week after a pre-proposal or a pre-bid meeting for you to formulate questions so that we can therefore answer them.
Just to clarify
Yep,
too,
sure.
so the process for a vendor to submit those questions or exceptions is through OpenGov. You'll see a section in the solicitation that is for Q&A, questions and answers. While there might be some answers provided in that section, we will be also doing the addendums, which provides all questions and answers. And those
Yep.
are ones you have to acknowledge.
Yep,
It's
correct.
part of the process of a solicitation. It's one of the steps in a solicitation.
Next question. In your proposals, do you include a checklist to help with this issue? I don't know which specific issue. So the best way I can answer that is this. Utilizing OpenGov, right? It asks you very specific things to upload specific documents, whether they be conflict of interest certification, your small business enclosures. It'll walk you through exactly what it is needed. So is it a defined checklist? I would say no. However, the program, if you utilize it and look at each section about what it is asking you to upload, I guess I could view that almost as a checklist in the OpenGov system itself.
Yeah, and what Ron's referring to is the questionnaire kind of checklist item that is required prior to submission.
Okay, next question. Does RTD have a policy encouraging or restricting members of proposal review teams from utilizing AI when they are reviewing proposals? If you don't have a policy, do you have a way to check if the review team followed the policy? If you don't yet have an AI policy, do you plan to draft one? Long question. Encouraging or restricting members of a proposal review team from utilizing AI. In all honesty, I don't know that I have ever chaired a technical evaluation and had somebody say they utilized AI. Dana, you want to chime in, your hands up?
So I can try. Thank you. And you can go ahead, Ron, and continue. I want to hear what your thoughts are.
I don't know that we have ever, I am not aware that we have ever utilized AI during a technical evaluation. Do we have a policy as of it? I'm going to have to defer. I'm not aware.
So I think we aren't allowed to, we don't have a formal policy, but our IT department is working on that. And that's something I think is critical, that we have our review teams having their eyes on it. These are the subject matter experts. They're looking at these and reviewing these proposals. So I would actually just flip this around and use this as an opportunity to say the converse, right? About proposals that are submitted that are created with AI. And that's where we see a greater problem. So I'll just leave that out there, where they're not answering the questions. They're doing they're running up against these pitfalls that Brenda has outlined, because they're not crafted carefully to respond to the specific proposal.
So I think that opens up the last two portions of that question are, if you do have a policy, do you have a way to check if the review team followed it? That's again a question to IT, because I don't think that we have one thus far. And if you don't as yet have an AI policy, do you plan to draft one? Again, I would have to defer to IT and management. As far as I know, we do not utilize AI. Question. Thanks for answering my questions. Some more clarifying ones. You mentioned you had a language services contact. Where is it posted? Was it filled? As a language services company, where do you recommend we start? How can we get to providing services? Can you provide instructions on steps to be taken? Also, can I get the information of the person in charge of language services? Again, I'm not familiar. All I can comment is I know that there was talk of engaging or exploring a contract for language services. However, I'm not aware that I can't recall, was it Jill or Bethany had
It
mentioned
wasn't
there.
me, but I think she said it was filled with a co-op.
Yeah, so we've done language services via co-ops in the past. I do know there was an attempt to go out for a competitive solicitation, though I am not aware of it being uh turning into a contract. Brenda?
Yeah, Brenda.
So I'm just gonna say, eh, our needs for those types of things vary based on what we have going on and funding availabilities, et cetera. That said, I don't know, Samira, if you have registered on OpenGov, but that's, you know, you're asking what is your first step? That is your first step. Register on OpenGov, add your NICS codes so that they align with the work that you provide. And when we have the opportunity to post a solicitation for those types of services, you will get a notification. I'm going to go into OpenGov. I see Kelly's hands up, so I'm going to let her talk, and I'm going to look in OpenGov just to double check to see if I can give you a little bit more information about what we have in place right now.
Thank you, Brenda. Yes, too, not sure the name of the individual, but we, actually, Civil Rights Division does use language assistance, providers for our Transit Equity Office, because we have part of Title VI is the language, access plan, our program for limited English speaking individuals. So there is an array of different languages that RTD engages a service provider for translation, for customer service calls, in addition to other outlets that we may have to engage with our limited English community. I'm still fairly new to my role, so I'll double check with the manager for the Transit Equity Office to find out how that contract was issued. And we will follow up with, I think we're following up with all of the, I tell you what, let the record reflect that we will follow up with you, particularly in reference to language assistance services. Okay? Thank you.
So I'm sharing my screen right now. Thank you, Kelly. That's helpful. I'm sharing my screen right now. This is our contracts in OpenGov. So we definitely have several active contracts. Some were done as requests for quotations, sole source, and a co-op. So we have across the board methods that we've obtained these services. So I just wanted to point that out. So we definitely have them. It looks like some are good through the end of the year. I didn't dig as far to know if there's option years available so that those contracts may be extended. But again, the first thing I recommend is to make sure you're registered as a vendor, activated that, and added your NICS code. So, so I see one from Soul, and a question. So it's just because I'm looking at it, I'll answer it. Who does the micro purchases? Is that a person within a department of RTD, or is it a person in the procurement team? So it can be both, to be honest with you. It depends on the need. It depends on, so what by need, I mean, what is it that needs to be purchased, and also how quickly does it need to be purchased? Sometimes people throughout our divisions buy things that are micro purchases on a P card. Other times they do come through procurement and are handled by this team, the contracts team. So it isn't a very, it just depends. And that's probably not the answer you were looking for, but it's spread throughout the agency for those types of purchases. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, another question. Would all exceptions include offering an equal product? Would all exceptions. So maybe the best way to answer that would be this. So needless to say, if we are asking for a brand name or equal, that's a supply item, right? Not any kind of service. So would all exceptions include offering an equal product? So normally what we will do is the scope of work will outline the specific product that we are looking for. Maybe I'll use the monitor that's in front of me, right? RTD is looking to buy 50 monitors that are 21 inches, that have this specific display pixel rate, energy saving, what have you. If the scope of work says, I want an HP monitor and these are the specifications, if you want to offer a Dell monitor or a Sony monitor, as long as it is equal to or exceeds the minimum requirements that are outlined, that's an acceptable or equal product, right? If the standard is X, but you're offering what you consider an equal product, but it fails in comparison, that we view that as a non-equal product. So would all exceptions include offering an equal product? What we try to do is, right, we talked about sole source and brand name. So brand name would be, I want a Dell monitor and I can only utilize a Dell. We make it painful or difficult for our people, whether it's in IT or somebody else, we make it a painful endeavor for them to say, I can only utilize this product. And just so you know, there's a lot of stuff that happens in the background. They have to justify why it has to be a Dell monitor and it can't be a Sony or a Samsung or anything else that's out there. They have to come up with some very descriptive and quantifiable reasons for it has to be this specific thing. So we try to open it up, right? If it's a floor scrubber and they mention a specific manufacturer, there may be 2 or 10 different suppliers or manufacturers of floor scrubbers that meet that same specification standard. So we try to make sure that we are focused more so on the specs rather than the name of the product itself. Hopefully that answers your question. Can you define the term? I think it was approved equals. Kind of the same thing, right? That's in the same vein. So if the specification or the scope of work says we want, I'm looking at my phone, we need an Avaya telephone. It has to be Avaya. Again, we make them justify the reason it has to be Avaya. Maybe they have to use Avaya to plug into our telephone system network in order to make it work. However, maybe there's a Bell telephone that does exactly the same thing. So again, brand name is we are telling the community that we can only utilize that as a solution. Brand name or equal, or in this case, brand name or equivalent, it's the same product, it's just a different name. It provides the same functionality, same specifications. What my recommendation would be is if you see a solicitation publicized that says it's got to be brand name, again, during the inquiry period, that is your time to shine and say, you know what, I know that you guys have brand name. I know that you think there's only one solution out there or one manufacturer out there. However, I think that this would be, and you can post that during the inquiry period. We will do our due diligence and make a decision as far as whether or not that's acceptable. Okay, can RTD provide an org chart of project managers, staff for A&E contracts? Does RTD have a list it could provide of current incumbents, prime firms for A&E services, architectural and engineering? So I'm guessing our website, I'll have to look. And just so everybody out there that understands or that knows, architectural and engineering services are done. I'm going to go back to Patrick's presentation. Those are all done as request for qualifications, right? There's something called the Brooks Act that we follow. A&E service contracts are predicated on a specific set of rules, and we try to pursue, again, request for qualifications responses do not include a cost. We rate the respondents in order of the best, right? There's number 1, number 2, number 3. And the way that we do those is kind of unique in the fact that the top rated firm for an A&E contract, we then engage with them and say, you scored highest. We would like to work with you on gleaning a contract, but we need to talk about costs. If we can negotiate an equitable cost between RTD and that firm, we issue a contract. If we can't, if that firm is simply too expensive for us, that's the difference on an A&E or request for qualifications, that we say, you know what, I'm sorry, we couldn't come to an agreement. Then we start negotiating with firm number two. The same holds true. If we can come to an agreement on costs, then we move forward with an award. If we can't, and again, then we go to number three, so on and so forth, until we can come up with an agreeable contract with the A&E firm. So the second part of that question, does RTD have a list it could provide of current incumbents, prime firms for A&E services? I'm going to defer to Bethany or Brenda. Can the people on this call, if they have access to OpenGov, review contracts that are no longer active for A&E, or can they only see active A&E contracts?
So currently, I do not believe we have a public-facing contracts management
Okay.
portion of OpenGov. But this is definitely considered a Quora request, and that request form can be found on RTD's website. And I'll actually post the link here shortly in the chat. And Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe the public is able to see our current contracts or past contracts.
No, that is something that we're working on, setting up and validating our contract database, so that we can have a public facing contract database. So you could go in and search, for example, like what we were talking about earlier, language services, right? And that would show you all of the contracts that we have, and then you could click on each one and download the contracts and amendments for those. We don't have that quite yet, but we're hoping to get that in place in the future. So we're setting everything up as we're populating the our database, so that we'll be able to utilize that feature, but it's just not active yet.
So to roll it all together, soon enough, you'll be able to access it. But in the interim, to Bethany's point, right, we are a transparent organization. So if you go to rtd-denver.com, there's a link for an open records request. So specifically to that, if you ask for prior A&E contracts, and again, that's kind of a wide variety, but you definitely have the ability to ask for those contracts that we had in the past. You are definitely able to get those. As far as the org chart is concerned, I don't know if our RTD website lists all of those. Maybe, Angel, if you want to reach out to one of us here, I'll do some due diligence and make sure that we answer your question diligently. Like OpenGov, who does the micro purchases? I think that's the one that Brenda had answered. When contracts are nearing expiration, what indicators or public signals does RTD use to show when a procurement will be recompleted? I'm guessing re-advertised. How can we find these expiring contracts? So that multifaceted. So with the implementation of OpenGov, it gives us the opportunity to receive reminders that, you know what, the contract that you have is going to expire in 6 months or a year. Prior to OpenGov, we relied on our project managers because, again, we shuffle so many different things that it's hard to keep up on that. So we would rely on our PMs to say, you know what, I know I need to get paperwork through because the existing contract's going to end. How can we find these expiring contracts? That's a good question. The fact that, again, upcoming solicitations is the first thing that comes to mind, but Brenda, I'm going to defer. Is that what you were going to say?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay.
At that point, so when we know that a contract is expiring, OpenGov is sending notifications to the project team and others to notify them, hey, you know, this needs to be resolicited. So we should receive a purchase requisition package for us to move forward with that process, the resolicitation process. And like I mentioned earlier, when we receive an approved purchase rec and we start building that solicitation in OpenGov, it will show on our upcoming solicitations. It could be a month before, it could be 2 months before, or it could be a week before. It just depends on the complexity and how much time it takes to finalize everything. Naturally, things that are more complex and have a lot more documentation, etc., often take a little bit longer to build that solicitation, go through the required reviews, and then get to the point of advertisement. So I just encourage you to, again, register for OpenGov with your next code so you can get notifications. Also, you can check our RTD website, and I'll show you that in just a few minutes before we're done, how to get to that. So.
Next question. Can you clarify who on the RTD side has access to OpenGov? Since micro purchases are made on the department side and or the procurement side, does that mean that all departments can use OpenGov to see the list of vendors that can potentially provide the good or service they are looking for? So maybe I'll answer it this way. There has been, again, the global shift within procurement to OpenGov was done not that long ago. We have actively reached out to RTD staff to, just like we were asking you as vendor partners, to sign up with OpenGov so that we can utilize that tool to the greatest extent that we can. So to answer your question, we have tried to engage everybody within RTD that has anything to do with, right, a budget analyst, a project manager, anybody that needs those services, we have asked that they sign up. So to answer your question, is it a complete? Does everybody at RTD have an OpenGov login? No. Is the intent to have everybody that would have anything to do with what we do? The intent is to continue to push. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's pretty high right now. So I believe that they have the opportunity to utilize OpenGov and look for specific NAICS codes to look at the vendor community. But I want to give a caveat with that, right? So we as procurement, our responsibilities are to reach out, engage the vendor community, and do things the correct way. If you're talking about the project managers across the breadth of what we do within the district, right, we don't want miscommunication to happen from a project manager who is more focused on the type of machinery that we need, or the type of brakes or what have you. They're supposed to write the specifications and let us in procurement do that work in the background. Hopefully that makes sense. I don't want to put anybody off kilter, but right, our job in procurement is to do the procurement functions. Their job is to make sure that the fleet stays up, the services are being done correctly, those types of things. And then Margaret, I don't understand. Okay, so that's for widgets, not services.
That was in reference to the approved equals, I believe.
Yeah, services are pretty, right? There are not, I'll use custodial services as an example. We have contracts for custodial and graffiti removal services. We need to make sure that all of our common areas are continually clean, serviced. Part of the contract scope says that if any graffiti is there, it has to be removed within 24 hours. So yeah, there's no equal to that, right? The service is the service.
And I would also add, they're not necessarily widgets, because they could be big, huge things like some sort of equipment or an engine for a vehicle or so I just wanted to clarify. Widgets in my mind comes up a little smaller, but
yeah. Jonathan's posted one. He said, sorry if I've missed, but I joined a little late. 2 questions. The first, is there any opportunity or channel to bring a project or service, etc., to RTD proactively? Yes, we a multitude of different ways, right? We do unsolicited proposals. Again, looking at time, I don't want to delve into unsolicited proposals, but we do have a quantified means of receiving unsolicited proposals and going through an initial evaluation and a determination as far as whether or not we want to pursue that. So the answer to that is yes. Question number 2, do you offer any recurring meeting where upcoming projects are discussed, similar to taking flight meetings that Denver, I'm guessing Denver International Airport, can't talk, hosts? I think we do our DBAC meetings. I don't know that we've got any other recurring meetings besides DBAC. But again, I would defer to upcoming solicitations postings within OpenGov. Brenda?
So I think Alexis has a newsletter that goes out. Alexis, do you want to chime in on that? And then also, I do need to move forward with the OpenGov and
Yep.
that information. So
Yep.
go ahead,
Sure.
Alexis.
Quickly, we send out through Salesforce to about 6,000 people, but that will be a newsletter specifically going to events and other contracting opportunities and small business development opportunities that are spread out in the community. So it's not only related to RTD. So that's what we use the newsletter. But again, like you were mentioning, Brenda, going to OpenGov is the most important thing. Dedicating time, selecting someone in your team to, maybe on a weekly basis, going to OpenGov, I think is the most important thing. And lastly, going and sending the right person to those pre-proposal or pre-bid meetings is critical as well. Sometimes we think, let's just send the one doing the work, but not the one actually putting together the proposal or putting together the bid. Try to invite those to the pre-bid and pre-proposal as part of your strategic plan. And just get ready for in preparation for any potential opportunity. Go ahead, Brenda.
Thanks, Alexis. Jill, while I'm thinking about it, can you do me a favor and post the new vendor brochure in the chat? That brochure has a QR code and a link to register as a vendor. So we just got that finalized, I think yesterday. Daniel, this meeting is until 11 o'clock. Let's see. So I don't know where the rest of that is. Can you click that again? Okay. Thank you. I forgot I set it up that way. Thanks. So there are many vendor benefits for registering in OpenGov. And so we're just going to talk about a few of them right now. You can discover new contracting opportunities quickly. You get automatic alerts for solicitations that match your goods or services, I should have put. So that's your NICS codes, right? You can ask questions and receive answers regarding solicitations through OpenGov. And one of the best and most efficient pieces of this is submitting your proposals online. It's fast, easy, and paperless. It's also free. In the past, we had methods in place that you had to pay to download and different things. And so this is completely no charge to all of other vendors. So, and then you can also track your submissions and updates in real time. So I'm going to take just a minute to go to our website just really quick. Jill's going to post that
I'm working on it.
that vendor brochure before we're done. You don't have to hurry, it's fine. Likely the people on this call are familiar with our website, but I'm just gonna share my screen. Hang on. Just show you, this is just gonna be a really quick demonstration of our website or whatever. So okay. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. All right, so here's RTD's website. This is where you land when you go to www.rtd-denver.com. So in order to look at the procurement information, you scroll down. The easiest way is to scroll all the way to the bottom and click on doing business with RTD. And then there is a doing business with RTD. There's information here. Contact information, purchasing help. And here's the 4 steps to start working with us. And I'm going to, so here's, I'm not going to go through each one of these specifically. but I just want to point this out. So pay attention to these, but I'm going to go to the procurement resources page. And these are all links to OpenGov. So current solicitations, if I click on this, hopefully it pops up in the right place. Just a second. Great. Look at this. Okay. So we don't have any active solicitations. That's not true. Okay, here's the active solicitations right now. Okay, so if you click on that link, you'll see which ones are currently advertised. And then upcoming solicitations, it seems like this isn't loading quickly. So these are ones that are coming soon. They're in process. RFI for promotional merchandise program, Ridgegate and Skyridge Park and Ride erosion control and seeding, and large printing contract. So these, oftentimes you'll see that there's not that many in here because they don't stay here long, right? Because we're trying to get these the solicitations created and advertised as soon as we can once we receive that purchase requisition to move forward with the solicitation. So here's pending award, right? Yeah, these are pending award. It'll show where it is. So this is pending award. This is in the evaluation process right now. And so you can see where they are. Usually when it says pending, it's sorry, trying to talk too fast because we're running out of time. It is the evaluation is complete and maybe we're working on awarding the contract, or maybe we're waiting for board approval for the recommendation. So, and then the last category is contracts awarded, and those are recent contracts that are awarded. And when you see closed here, it means the solicitation's closed and it's either been awarded. This was a request for information, so there's no award. Or in some situations, unfortunately, we have to cancel a solicitation, and we don't like to do that, but as you can see, there's 26 pages of this. So I encourage everyone to utilize this resource. Also on this page, you can click here. You can use the QR code that we're sharing on that vendor brochure, but you can also come here and it'll take you through the process of registering as a vendor. It's very easy, but I would just remind you to make sure you follow up. Once you start the process, you do have to go back in and activate and ensure that your information has all been entered and is accurate. Okay.
I'm sorry, but I cannot get this. It won't, in the chat, it won't let me add an attachment or even copy and paste.
Oh, okay.
I sent it to you, Bethany. I don't know if you could try.
We can
I don't
share
know.
it with all
Okay.
participants as part of the package that we're going to be sharing after. So that's great anyways.
Okay.
Thank you for trying, Jill.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. Okay. Are there more? Okay, am I in the right place? So you're sharing the post session survey? Okay. So I'll go ahead and close this out. Again, I encourage everyone on this call, if you could please just take 30 seconds, minute to fill this out. It's so helpful to us. The last question here is asking for additional topics or things you may want more information on. As you can tell, we collectively as an agency, one RTD, right? We support our vendor community and want to ensure that we're providing the correct or not providing resources to help you. We partner with Alexis and Kelly's team to ensure that we're doing all we can to support all of our vendors. Obviously, Alexis's team is, focused on small businesses, but they never in any of their activities exclude businesses that are not small business certified. So I just wanted to make that clear. This information we've shared today is helpful for all types of vendors, partners, contractors, etc. If we didn't get to your question, we will get, I think Alexis said this earlier, or we will make sure that those remaining questions are provided to everyone that attended the session. So I just want to thank Alexis and his team for helping partner with us to do this first RTD vendor contracting and procurement open house. Like Alexis said, we are working to do more of these in this year. So we will be sending that information out in the near future. Alexis, do you have anything else?
Yes, so thank you, Brenda. Thank you, the team. This is a great session. I can actually wait to see the feedback. The feedback actually in the chat has been great. So thank you very much for all the participants, and specifically you and your team, Brenda. We are one RTD, so and that's why you're here presenting to the whole community. Leveling the playing field for small businesses doesn't mean exclusivity. And like you mentioned, we want a fair competition for everybody. But for the small ones that doesn't have a team to really look on OpenGov in a regular basis because you're busy doing the work and you have a very small team, select some time during the week, select some time and schedule some time for yourself to review OpenGov. This is the key to be successful. Get to know OpenGov. Even if there is no opportunity for you right now, get to know OpenGov. So the next open house is scheduled for July 14. Write that down, July 14. We're going to send you the specific flyer and ways for you to register. We're going to partner with the team again. They're going to be the one, and it's going to be again in person in RTD's Blake office. So you're going to hear a lot of information soon. So keep in mind, we're sharing a lot of different opportunities for this type of learning opportunities, virtual, and we're going to also send you more related to Start Your Day with RTD. Tony will be the one leading those small sessions. And then we have another DVAC or RTD business stations, virtual sessions like this one, but specifically open house, again, is July 14th. So keep an eye on it. Again, thank you. It's 11:01. I know the team will stay here for any particular question for the ones that needs to leave. Again, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
and thank you
everyone.
again to the contracting and procurement team. I'm sorry I didn't say it again at the end here, but very much appreciate it. Everybody's
Great job.
inclusion.
Great job.
Alexis, one of the attendees says, should we ask questions here? Or can we come off of mute?
Well, we'll be through the chat at this point. So I know we already exceeded the time for the meeting, but we will be more than happy to answer those questions that you type in the chat. We're going to get back to you with those answers.
So the answer is have them send it via chat?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right. Jonathan, hopefully you received that or heard that.
You'd like me to display our brochure, share my screen for a minute?
If you can, Jill, that would be great. I'm going to jump to another meeting, but again, thank you guys. So we'll talk to each other pretty soon.
Thanks, Alexis.
Thank you so
Thanks so
much.
All right, Jonathan, just more info on the unsolicited proposal channel. If there is a contact email or a link to more, I did answer in the chat. If you, there's a link there, but if you don't see it, if you go to our website, rtd-denver.com, there's a search bar there, and you can simply type in unsolicited. Once you do that, it'll give you several options to look at. There is a procedure for an unsolicited proposal. And really, in a nutshell, what that means is, right, that we normally have a defined need, right? Whether it's again, a product, a service, what have you. We have in the past received, again, unsolicited proposals from the vendor community for a wide variety of different things, right? Things that maybe that we're not thinking about in the background. Sometimes vendors will come forward and say, you know what, if you guys would just do this or consider utilizing this as a solution, I think it would definitely be a benefit not only to you, but people within the district. That's where unsolicited proposals come in, right? So instead of us asking the vendor community for a response, the vendor community is actually approaching us and saying, I think you guys may want to consider this. And again, there is a defined procedure in order to receive, document, and evaluate those unsolicited proposals. Hopefully that answers your question. Here's another one from, is there a specific contact for security protective services contracts with an RTD? I don't know where, Patrick, there was a solicitation that was out. So is there a specific contact for security or protective services? If we are currently in a solicitation phase for those services, we really kind of, right, make sure that all inquiries specific to that service are routed through procurement, right? We don't want a bunch of flyaway things. So Patrick, is that still an open or is that off the table?
It's off the table.
Okay.
Yep.
So, is there a specific contact for security or protective services contracts? It looks like you probably just missed that one. I know that we had a solicitation out for security services, and to Patrick's point, I believe we're in the award phase of that right now.
That's correct.
Okay. Just more on the proposals we did. Brenda, could you please send again where to go for free, fast, easy online proposals?
I don't know what that meant. Do
I don't
you?
know. Can you please send again where to go for free, fast, easy online proposals?
It was for OpenGov, I believe.
So it's just the
The
link to have them
registration.
sign up on OpenGov. Is that what it was?
I believe so.
Okay.
So that will be in the QR code will be,
Has a link.
hold on, let me back up. I'm saying that too fast. Two things. Number one, we talked about going to the RTD website and going to the procurement resources page. That there's a link there. There's also a link on the the vendor brochure that we're going to share. There's a QR code and link so you can register as a vendor through that as well.
Okay. Well, I need to drop, so I don't know if you want to stay on longer just in case. I know that we still have several people that are on the call, but I need to drop, so I'll turn it over to your very capable hands and watch the chat and answer any additional questions. But I want to thank everybody, not only on the RTD side, but our vendor partner and community as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. I think we can go ahead and wrap up and drop off. Again, you know, I've said it about 10 times, but I apologize for my technical issues. I don't know how it happened, but we had some difficulty, or I did, with those surveys. So thank you for filling them out. If you're still on this call and can fill it out, I just really appreciate that because it's so helpful. So I'm going to drop off too. Thank you, everyone, for attending and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.